Outlaws. Welcome back to the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. Adam, it's episode 69. Hey, and what better way to commemorate that such an exciting number by taking in the powers that be era in WCW. How you doing, Adam? You alright?
Yeah, I'm good. This will feel therapeutic, talking about some of this in a way.
Just getting it off your chest.
Yeah.
Have you got, I know we're both outlaws, have you got pistols on you?
I feel like you're setting me up for something. I don't know what to say. No.
No pistols? Good. I was going to say holster them because Eric Bischoff has been sent home. Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara and Creative can charge. And we are shooting, brother.
Oh, so
Buff Bagwell especially. Because he's buff and he's got the stuff.
Oh.
Let's get ready to talk Men Up North. Yeah. But before that, we're in 1999. Shall we talk about our film for this week?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
It was an anticipated one. More for you than it was for me. I was terrified to watch it, but my fears did not come true. So we watched the Blair Witch Project this week, which was the top horror film from 1999. I've got a little synopsis here.
Yep.
This is a fictional story of three student filmmakers who hike into the Black Hills near Burkittsville, Maryland in 1994 to film a documentary about a local myth known as the Blair Witch. The three disappear, but their equipment and footage are discovered a year later. The purportedly found footage is the movie which we see. How'd you enjoy, however many years on, 24 years on, how'd you enjoy the Blair Witch Project? You don't look confused.
I think I saw it, I think I've seen it once since seeing it at the cinema. I really enjoyed it at the cinema, and I still remember really enjoying it and thinking, not so much that it scared me, but I think it was really different. It was the first of what became, I don't know, almost a weekly release of this kind of film.
Yeah.
So it was a bit different. It felt new. It felt fresh. I thought it was quite intense. And like that, we discussed this, I think, when we were talking about the Cube, about seeing the people involved sort of start to just disintegrate mentally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I rewatched it this time, and there were maybe things annoying me about it that didn't really previously. I'm usually okay with a bit of a wobbly camera because you know what it is. It's supposed to be real. It's supposed to be that these people are hand holding these, and what you're getting is the sort of camera view of somebody who is terrified and holding a camera to their face.
Mm-hmm.
The woman is quite annoying. The lead actress, quite annoying, but at times her outrage is, I think, quite right. At times it's just, I don't know, it's like it's there to annoy you. So yeah, it didn't hit the way I'd maybe hoped it would, and the way it did when I watched it years ago. I thought it was fine, but it no longer struck me as anything special.
Yeah, it's a novelty that you can't unwatch it. You can't watch it for the second time, and it's a bit like Sixth Sense in that way.
Yeah.
The first time watching it is the time that it's going to sort of knock you off your feet. Yeah. There were bits and pieces that I enjoyed. I found the female character quite annoying as well, but I mean, put in her circumstances and having read a little bit about how they filmed it, It sounds like improvisation was very much the key thing that they were told. They lived out there in that forest, however long it took them to film it, and the production was quite far removed from them. I think they maybe had walkie-talkies or something like that.
Okay.
I think they told the guy. They told the guy to. Well, it's definitely, you know how one of them disappears towards the end.
Yeah.
They didn't tell the actors that was going to happen. They just told him. They gave him a note and told him to disappear in the middle of the night, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Really cool. And I think they told the guy to destroy the map as well, and all that's improvised as well. So stuff like that, little bits and pieces like that is quite cool.
It was the map bit where I was a wee bit on her side. Like, yeah, I mean, don't do that.
Gigantic asshole thing to do. The thing that used to really mess me up about this film was the very, very end. Spoilers for the Blair Witch Project. The very, very end, where is it Josh? Which one's Josh? No matter. There's three of them. There's Heather, Michael, and Josh. They're shouting on. I think it's Michael that disappears, and they've spoke. They spoke to people around the area about all the different myths and all that, and they talked about like a nothing to do with the Blair Witch, but they talked about someone who would kill two children at one time. It would kill one and make the other one face the corner, and because he didn't like to be watched whilst he was killing people. And then we get to that little house, and Josh, I think it is in the corner, and we just see her, you know, for the camera perspective, we see her get knocked over. That messed me up seeing that the very first time.
Okay.
The fact that he's, I don't know, like an 18 to 20-year-old man that is just powerless, and he's just stood there in the corner looking down and doesn't move. It used to freak me out. Anyway, I was terrified to watch it, but watching it back, it was fine. Like I say, I think it loses all sort of power after you've seen it the first time.
Yeah.
But it's, I think the idea of the film's more interesting now than actually watching the film back.
Yeah. I think when you do take into account when it was done, the fact, you know, there hadn't really been something like that before, and, you know, such a small budget, and basically, you know, slayed Hollywood with it. It was obviously a huge success with what it was and what it became. It probably prompted far too many imitation films of one kind or another, and I think because they're probably so cheap to do, there's so many bad ones, like just unwatchable ones out there. Because I imagine you can do it on it, especially nowadays, you could do it on next to nothing as a budget. But yeah, you're right in what you say. I think what I would say, there's some films that, you know, I always go to like The Usual Suspects and Saw as films that have that moment in it. And once you've seen it, you can watch the film again. But I can actually watch those films again and still enjoy the film, whereas this one, I couldn't really get into it. I struggled with it.
Yeah, exact same. Found footage-wise, what films, you've said that there's a lot of bad ones. What good ones would you highlight?
Oh, good ones.
We would say Creep 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, I really like both of those. You just watched them, was it this year? You just watched them for the first time.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, those are good. I didn't put them on expecting much, and I was so pleasantly surprised by both of them. I thought they were excellent.
Definitely. Marked plus. Cloverfield?
Yeah, I haven't watched that for a very, very long time. I wonder what that's like to watch now, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
however many years ago I watched it.
And Paranormal Activity kind of took the whole Blair Witch thing and pushed it on a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, it never gave me the scares. I remember watching the first one and thinking, that's okay. You know, it's an okay film. But I think there was something that it was right at the end that ruined it. Because I'm more into the mystery and the not knowing, and then when, you know, some ghoulish thing walks up to the camera and goes, hey, that kind of ruins it for me.
Class. That's what we were saying about The Ring last time. The difference between the sort of Asian version and the American version. Okay, cool. Well, that was our horror. Let's move on to some really, really horrific wrestling.
High point.
It was, and yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to our 10th, I believe. Our 10th? Yep, we started this 10 pay-per-views ago. Or is this the 11th?
Wow.
This is the 11th Halloween Havoc. Once again, we're in Vegas. Like Sting told us, he came to Vegas for a fight and he wasn't leaving without a fight. Well, did he even get one? Questionable.
Yeah.
24th October 1999, we're in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. We've got the gargoyle again, so it's got that going for it, at least, with the big pumpkin, the sort of raven gargoyle.
Yep.
Opening video package gives us... What's the story with Sid here? Were you getting like sort of Harley race from the way that he was going about?
I think so, yeah. So we've talked about Sid a few times, and I think we both really, really quite like Sid. He's got some in,
Definitely.
But yeah, they had him aligned with race for a while, didn't they? And I've thought, is he maybe trying to, become a Harley race type here? So yeah.
So he's feuding with Goldberg. Sid is the US champion.
Mm-hmm.
The US belt seemed to be the more prominent title, based on what they're doing here. I suppose before we go any further, we've obviously talked about it, we should say that Bischoff was sent home in September. This is October. Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo have moved from WWF along with Jeff Jarrett, and this is their first pay-per-view, and you can really, really tell. A lot of the creative decisions here are baffling. Yeah.
They're leaning quite... It comes across like Sid and Goldberg is the biggest deal here, which is interesting, because you've got a Sting v Hogan match for the world title also on the card. And I was trying to get my head around, because I think there's a video package, but maybe it definitely touches on... I think there was a clause, or there seemed to be a clause, that if Goldberg touched Sid, he would lose his title shot, but then he does it and nothing seems to change anyway. And then they kind of almost as an afterthought, there's a bit of Sting and Hogan stuff. And I couldn't quite work out, because there's no longer certainly a prominent NWO. I don't think there is an NWO at all anymore here. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out, is Hogan babyface and Sting heel? But then nothing that really happens later on would play into that, but we'll get to that.
So Hogan was red and yellow Hogan at this point. Sting was heel.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah.
The idea had been to give Flair, Hogan and Savage, to write them off TV and to try and elevate some younger talent. So that's why they were doing a lot of stuff with the Filthy Animals, which we'll talk about later on. That was apparently Russo and Ferrara's thing, that they wanted to everybody have a story, which they did, Attitude Era wise, and to give some of the older faces time off and develop some WCW younger talent, which in principle all of that sounds great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nothing wrong with that as an idea. I suppose it's about how you execute it.
Indeed. Oh well. Here's a WCW homegrowner to start us off. It's our boy, the Disco Inferno, the Cruiserweight champion.
I remember. I know we've still got one to go after this, but I remember saying a few ago that if there was one guy that was still going to be there at the end and be on all the shows, it would be Disco Inferno. It just seemed inevitable.
Do you think Lash LaRue will also be there next time?
I don't know why, but I had no idea who this was, Lash LaRue. And when he came out, I still, sometimes you'll see a guy and think, oh yeah, that's and I still had no idea who he was. And I don't know him by any other name after this either.
Nah, me neither. Also questionable if either of these men would qualify as a cruiserweight. Very substantial gentlemen. I'm going to be honest with you, my notes on a lot of these matches are not good. One, I've been unwell, and two, I was angry watching a lot of this.
Okay, so
I stopped writing notes. So yeah,
I've got some. I
okay.
don't have an awful lot for some of them, but I do have some.
Okay.
Some of them might not be that helpful, but well, yeah, I can go through them.
Something I did notice with this match and a few other matches is that Schiavone has possibly checked out by now because
Yeah.
in numerous matches he says, and he hits his move.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if he's, applying for jobs. writing his resume as he speaks. Yeah, so I'll go through my notes. The first one I've got is I can't believe the crowd are still into this disco entrance because they seem to be. I
It's
don't
the
know that they're
music.
into it once the bell rings. So yeah, it probably is just the music.
So are we saying that Disco Inferno is like the original Seth Rollins?
Maybe.
They all just like and then.
I mean, I do think maybe from a worker point of view, it's maybe a wee bit harsh.
Disco's a bit better in the ring.
Well, so I've got I don't know, Lash. I've really early gone with that. I just can't bring myself to care about this.
Oh dear.
And then a bit clunky. Lash nearly falls off the top rope before a flying head scissors that was clearly meant to lead to a cover, but Disco went too close to the ropes and halfway under. Disco goes full Bret Hart with a side Russian leg sweep and then a wee dance. I don't think Bret did the dance. And then he goes up the top, up the ropes for a gyration and then an elbow drop. And I'm getting a wee bit annoyed. I'm writing, this is not the best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
You think he's biting? Well, for his finishing move, he hits some version of a stunner. Did he do that last time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. He hits Lash with a pile driver.
It's a nice pile driver.
Yeah, I tend to wince every time I see a pile driver a little bit, but it looked safe. It looked okay. We've got what's referred to, I think, as a short power bomb by Lash. And Disco hits a stunner, which I think they refer to as the last dance.
Nice.
So Disco retains. The announcers were really trying to put over Lash, talking about how talented he was and stuff like that. And then Lash has a wee, he's not very happy at the end. So it kind of does, it's almost like an F5 type move.
It's a really cool move.
Yeah. They say, though, that it was on the belt. It wasn't. But I think it was maybe intended to be. I think part of his body maybe landed on the belt. It was nowhere near his head. But, it wasn't great. And I worry it set a really negative tone because I've tried not to go into these shows thinking this is going to be shit. But when it doesn't get you off to a flying start, when you're not invested at the start, it's going to really take something to bring you back into it.
Need to lift it up. Well, the classic babyface behaviour of attacking the champion after he's just beat you clean from Lash LaRue. If that didn't bring you back into it, then,
Maybe it was a double turn. Maybe this is, your classic Austin Brett moment.
Nice. Well, he's hit a stunner and he's hit a Russian leg sweep. Backstage, we see Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit, who have been in Japan, arriving. They appear to be in some sort of faction with a lot of factions going on here in WCW at this point. So we must have Shane Douglas, Saturn, Malenko, and Benoit as the Revolution. And Malenko's like, "Where you guys been?" Shane's been trying to get a hold of you. Now Malenko, he goes pretty Oscar-worthy performance here. He tells Malenko to tell Shane to stick the Revolution up his ass, which is so
the story they're kind of telling here is that Benoit and Malenko are going to walk off on their own away from the Revolution. I quite like the sound of this faction just with the people involved in it, but I was never aware it was a thing.
No, I mean,
I do know there was always a story that when the Radicals jumped, Shane Douglas was hoping to jump with them. It sounds like they just kind of didn't call him back or something like that. And I don't think he was in the good graces of the likes of Vince at the time. So it never happened. But I suppose they're obviously working together to at least some extent here. Because I always thought when I heard it, it's a bit of an odd fix. You never really saw him with these guys, but I suppose he's with them here.
Interesting. It would have been funny to hear, the classic Who Hired Johnny Polo story. Quite funny to have heard the Who Hired Dean Douglas back. Now, here's one of my highlights of this pay-per-view. We have got the Harlem Heat backstage with Iron Mike today, and Booker goes off on one in one of his usual tirades, and at the end of it he says, "Now can you dig that, man?" to Tenay, and Tenay, completely straight face, says, "I can relate to that."
When he started, I thought, is he going to say dig? And he didn't. And I can't decide if it would have been better if he had, or the fact that he didn't was quite good.
And then Stevie Ray just talks. And yeah, what seems to have happened here is I think the tag team champions was Rey Mysterio and Conan. And Rey Mysterio's got injured, so they've stripped the Filthy Animals of the titles, and they've now booked a Street Fight Falls Count Anywhere triple threat match.
Of course they have.
To give us new tag team champions. Whereas in the old Freebirds rule style of things, surely Kidman could have just stepped in and been Rey Mysterio's substitute.
Yeah, given they are established as a collective, you would have thought so. So this is Harlem Heat against the Filthy Animals and something called the First Family, which is Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris. Had you ever heard of the First Family?
No.
Yeah, me neither. And they come out with creepy masks on. Is it them that come out? I think it is them that come out with creepy masks on.
Yeah, one of them's got like a monkey mask on, and Hugh Morris has got something weird on.
Now, how did you... two questions, right? Brian Knobbs without Jerry Sags, I'm not interested in. We saw them be quite entertaining as sort of an early pre-WWE run Nasty Boys, which I think we both quite like.
Brilliant. Young, sort of fresh face, they look like gangsters sort of thing. They look great. Yeah.
And then we saw them a bit later, I think, after they'd maybe been away and come back, and we're a bit like, this is just kind of what they were in WWE now. But I'm not interested in one without the other, so I was a bit like, meh. But also, how did you feel when you heard there would be two referees?
Well, so in my notes I wrote 2 refs, so you know this is going to be a mess. Immediately, as soon as they said there was 2 refs and it's Falls Count Anywhere, you know that we're getting 2 winners. This is I've got my notes here that first of all, actually, the Filthy Animals. I love the idea of the Filthy Animals as a faction. Conan, Rey Mysterio, Eddie, and Kidman. You had Tori with Kidman, and they were doing this gimmick where she would like come out with a video camera, or one of them would have a video camera, and they were like video and all this sort of stuff that they were doing, sort of cheap, heelish type behaviour. It's a cool collective of people. They seem to be getting a bit of a push, which is in line with what I was saying about what they're wanting to do with younger talent. They were involved with Ric Flair. I liked them. Really liked them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yep. And they can all, of all of them, I've probably seen the least of Conan in the ring, but they all seem decent in-ring workers. And the sort of, it came across, maybe not here as much as something that happens a bit later on, but quite edgy.
Like
in
a cool
a good
Latino
way that
gang
didn't feel,
sort of thing.
Yeah, it didn't look or feel forced or false. That could have, I think, worked and been something.
This match, as soon as you've got Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris, who kind of just looked like, like Brian Knobbs is still just wearing his Nasty Boy stuff. It was a bit like WWE 2K, and they've just put you in a storyline with somebody else, and they can't change their clothes. As soon as I saw them two, we started getting trash cans and that. Remember that? What was it? The Nasty Boys versus who?
Oh, that absolute
Johnny
shit show.
Grunge and that other guy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Falls Count Anywhere, and it was just a mess. It was a double strap match. That's what it was.
Oh, it was terrible.
That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah,
Just
I found it
stinking.
really quickly. I lost interest. I think it was the trash cans coming out, and then I think everyone's in the ring all the time, so you don't know what to follow. You don't know what to look at. Jimmy Hart's getting tables out. Like, what's the point of this? I think there was a few things I'd noticed about. Hugh Morris off the top threw Conan, who he'd placed on a table in the ring. But then I think the whole time what you predicted, which I also thought is exactly what happens, because there's stuff going on in the ring. There's Harlem Heat have someone in the back, and they get the first pin. And the ref has counted the pin. The ref has followed them as they've gone through the back, having their fight. Who would have thought this problem could occur in a street fight rules match with two referees? So Harlem Heat get the win. I think is it the Filthy Animals have basically got a win in the ring. Yeah, but the referees confer and realise the other one was first. That had happened first. So Kidman's got hold of one belt. Harlem Heat have got another, but they end up, I think, getting hold of both. Kidman's furious, but yeah. 10-time tag team champions, Harlem Heat.
Wow. I've got my notes here. Sometimes you can be watching wrestling and be quite sort of enjoying it and taken in by it. And somebody somebody else walks in the room and you immediately feel embarrassed. That's how I felt watching this match, and nobody walked in the room.
Brilliant. There was one line right at the end by Bobby Heenan that made me laugh a bit, which was, so Conan's selling an injury, and Heenan just says, "You know what they do to horses," which just made me laugh.
That's class. Adam, how do you like your masturbation theme promos?
Well, I'm not a big fan. Like, I think maybe if someone were to sneak in some euphemisms and references without it being, I was going to say in your face, which doesn't sound great with the topic, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, when it's just saying it, I don't know, it doesn't really work for me.
Just when, you don't like the sort of nuance of somebody shouting, "Let's whack it and jack it all night long."
Nah, I think it makes me kind of want to switch off, but obviously I couldn't.
Indeed. The perpetrator here is DDP with his wife Kimberly, who's dressed like a lettuce. What is it that Heenan says something like, "That's the biggest artichoke I've ever seen," or something like that? It's just, they've done an angle where Kimberly was setting up David Flair to meet her in a hotel room, but instead of David, it was Rick. And yeah, you can just imagine, if you can imagine what it would be like if Ric Flair was to surprise a woman in her hotel room coming out the bathroom, and he's doing like those little steps and going, "Woo," little steps, and that's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
He spanked her backside 14 times, apparently.
Yeah.
And that's
she liked it when Paige does it, but not when Flair was doing it.
No. Well, I mean, that's understandable. That's her husband.
But yeah.
So that is why we then get a lot of references to spanking, whacking, and jacking. Yeah. So they're going to have a strap match. So do you think that wasn't previously advertised, and this is the first that the pay-per-view in public are like, "Oh, DDP and Ric Flair in a strap match"? Like, that might be useful to stick on the banner. Yeah,
I don't think Russo would have cared that much about that. It'd just be, if it's not in the TV show the next night, then he's probably not that bothered, I wouldn't have thought.
Crash car wrestling, bro. Where are we going next? Yes, another Tenay. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say it's a Filthy Animals promo, but I wasn't going to jump in with Tenay. I don't have any in my notes about what Tenay does.
Good. It's Eddie Guerrero with Mike Tenay, and he's got a Rolex on, gold Rolex, and obviously Flair's had his Rolex stolen from him the previous night or whatever, and Tenay eyes it up. He says, "Is that a Rolex? Looks a lot like the one that Ric Flair had." stolen, and Guerrero says, "Are you calling me a thief?" And again, straight faces. You're like, I never use the word thief.
Nice.
Why did he never uses the word thief?
Never.
I wasn't sure if I think he was meaning I never used the word thief, but he says I never use the word thief. It's a bad word in my house.
Yep, wouldn't use it. No.
Good work from Tinney. A poor man's Lee Marshall at heart, but
he's
good
doing his
nonetheless.
best to keep you entertained, at least.
Eddie, who's Eddie taking on? Perry Saturn. I don't recall anything else but promo part. I was blindsided by Tinney never using the word thief.
I think more of it was about the filthy animals and Flair rather than it being pointed at Saturn that much. But yeah, I was quite, because we go straight from there to Guerrero against Saturn. I was a wee bit enthusiastic for this when I saw who was going to be in it, because even though Guerrero's in a different faction than the one that there's these issues going on with, but you just always associate Guerrero with these other guys, but it's fine. So I thought this could be quite entertaining. But see, at the start of it, Eddie comes down and he leaves the watch with Bobby Heenan, who he says he trusts. This is Bobby Heenan, who's like, well, firstly, like the Weasel, the one of the most untrustworthy characters ever in wrestling, but also a very long time confidant of Ric Flair. But I was half expecting him to just, shuffle it in another pocket and say he was never given it. That would have been classic.
To be fair, Heenan talked glowingly about Guerrero in '97 when we watched Havoc, and then he started doing it again on this pay-per-view. He's one of his favourite wrestlers and all that. Maybe they've got a little bond. This was an alright wrestling match, actually. You can tell it was an alright wrestling match because the fans start shouting boring, start chanting boring for it.
Yeah, what did they want? Did they want more disco?
Car crash wrestling, bro. Sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah.
No, it's a good match.
Yeah, I think it was my favourite on the card. I'm not sure if that's saying a huge amount.
It's definitely not.
Yeah, I've got a few notes I can walk through.
Yeah,
Saturn is incredibly aggressive. Like right from the off here, he's a madman. He's chucking Guerrero about. Guerrero's, he will bump for people. Takes quite a bump on the steps early on. There's a nice power bomb with a bridge for a 2 count by Saturn. Eddie is selling being very hurt several times. He keeps making these little comebacks, and Saturn keeps overpowering him. Nice suplex with a release by Saturn, and he's going after the leg, which Guerrero's selling as being injured. We get a big suplex by Eddie, but Saturn then moves out the way to avoid the frog splash.
Yep.
Saturn springboards off the ropes. Eddie catches him with a nicely timed mid-air dropkick.
Very cool.
Fall-away suplex off the top by Saturn on Eddie, which I thought when they were doing it had all kinds of risk attached to it, but I don't think it was a bad one.
You don't see that a lot. It was a cool move.
Yeah. Eddie suplexing Saturn off the top. Ric Flair is walking down with a crowbar. Flair with a crowbar shot to Eddie's ribs. So Saturn gets DQ'd. Seems a bit harsh when that kind of thing happens. He had nothing to do with it. We've got Kidman running down and Flair quickly taking him out as well. Tori's down. Flair, he's a rascal. He's indicating at first he's going to hit her with the crowbar, but no.
There's even worse.
He kisses her. He dances around in a Ric Flair way, but after it, she's got a beaming smile aboard her. She's seeming delighted with what's just happened.
I think she wants to ride Space Mountain.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Do you remember the time where there was something happened where Vince kissed Tori in like a shower, like they were in like a shower scene. It's possibly one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen on WWF TV. His mouth is like wide open when he's going to kiss her. It made me think of that.
My mind goes mostly with Vince. My mind goes to the Trish Stratus stuff mostly because I think he was kind of all over her in many a segment. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flair comes back and gets his watch from Heenan, which he would do. I thought it was quite funny that this was probably the only match on the card where there's actually a good little back and forth bit of wrestling, and it ends up where neither guy is sort of highlighted, and it's sort of Flair and Tori that come out the end of it.
I enjoyed the in-ring. I thought they told a decent in-match story for as long as it went. But yeah, I suppose it would be too much to expect any kind of clean finish. Yeah.
Indeed. Backstage, we are rushed backstage because Goldberg is beating the living shit out of Sid.
Yeah.
And he is an absolute mess. Once he realises there are cameras on him, he starts shouting, "Is that all you've got?"
Yeah.
Which I quite liked. This goes from backstage to the ring for a promo, then backstage somewhere else before we get another match. Buff Bagwell's in the ring, and this is where we start shooting, bro, because he's talking about the writers from up north, the powers that be. You know, as soon as you start talking about writers, creative, anything like that, it's gone. You can't get it back. You cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube after you've done that.
No.
It's so stupid.
Like there is I think an on-screen authority figure can work because it's been done to death, which would be why it shouldn't be done right now. But at least you know that is potentially a hiring and firing person, and a person saying you get the title shot and that kind of thing. You know, assigning the referees to matches, all that kind of things. But even acknowledging that there are writers, you've killed it.
Imagine what's a show that you're in the middle of watching just now.
Something about neighbours. The people next door are the neighbours or something like that. Yeah.
Oh man.
Never even heard of it. It's the only one I can think of that we're watching right now.
Imagine Chandler walks into Central Perk and he's like, I was going to go to the movies tonight, but the writers made me go and do this instead.
I really hope if that did happen, he would have said it exactly like that.
Could they be any more annoying? It's just so silly.
Yeah.
It's like it's just Russo, isn't it? Because he doesn't really like wrestling. He likes what we've been told is he likes like the Jerry Springer stuff and all that.
And he can't. I don't think he can help himself. Like, especially, you know, he probably. I suspect he went into that company thinking it's a matter of time before I'm on screen. That's it. I'll get myself out there.
Vic Venom, WCW champion. It's always been said that Vince McMahon's greatest power was to like be able to filter Vince Russo's ideas. And in WCW, I think they're only really in creative charge for a really short time, and then someday some clever person decides that they need a creative booking team, and Russo decides to leave after that. Anyway, we digress. For some reason, Bagwell calls out Jeff Jarrett. Are they doing the whole like Jeff Jarrett's friends with these two guys up north?
I assume so, because I know it does very much go in a direction of Jarrett is their guy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if that happened straight away, but this kind of points to it must have.
So Jeff comes out with his guitar. They have a bit of a brawl. For some reason, the artist formerly known as Lex Luger appears. He's called the Total Package. He tries to nail Jeff Jarrett with the guitar, but just sort of dunks Bagwell on the head. Then smashes it off a turnbuckle just to show that it was gimmicked. Clunky, horrible segment.
Yeah.
Backstage, Tenay's with Sid, and we get a bleeding, angry Sid promo, really. Then we cut to Eddie. He's on the phone to Ray. Of all the people in that group to call, I don't know if Ray's the one. But he's like, "Come on, Ray, we need you to get back to the arena and help me."
I mean, what you're saying is if you've got Tori's number, you just call that?
Well, Conan, I was thinking. He's the bigger guy here.
Well, he's also, I think Conan often came out, he's always like referenced as being like an unofficial leader for loads of these people, so why not just make him the guy, you know?
Make him the leader.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, here's a change in pace.
Yeah.
How good is Brad Armstrong's entrance music?
I actually liked Brad Armstrong. I don't know that I was overly aware of him. He's Road Dogg's brother, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think he maybe passed away quite young.
What Brad Armstrong did?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, you're not talking about Road Dogg, are you?
No. I think he did, but I quite liked him. But
I liked him too. He's a definite throwback.
Yeah.
He looks.
I mean,
I think the only other time we've seen him is when they fed him at Goldberg on a pay-per-view, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because obviously they're from a wrestling family, and I think Road Dogg's often said that, you know, in terms of in-ring ability, he was absolutely nowhere near Brad, but he could talk. He could talk very well, Road Dogg. Yeah.
One of them's a WWE referee. Is it Scott Armstrong?
Right. Yeah. What did you make of the presentation of Berlin?
Absolutely nowhere near Berlin.
Nice.
To be fair to Alex, right? You would never have known that was the same guy.
That's true. I kind of watched this and thought, is there a war on right now?
When he came out, he had this sort of Benetton t-shirt, jumper on that was like United States of America, and he was pointing at it, and I was thinking, what is... Like, I was starting to think, when was 9/11? I was, like, confused. And then Berlin comes out, and he's with this guy called The Wall. That was weird. Let's do Germany versus America.
I thought there was some decent exchanges between the two in the match. I thought there were some moments. Heenan spends quite a lot of time talking up the lineage of the Armstrong family, trying to, make it seem important. But yeah, what do we go to? Is it I think it's a reverse neck breaker for the pin win for Brad. But it kind of seemed to come out of nowhere.
It did. It was a bit of a one-sided. So I was thinking to myself, this is just like a too long squash. I assumed this was a squash because Armstrong kind of is just a bit of a Brooklyn Brawler sort of enhancement talent, they call it, don't they?
Yeah,
That's what that felt like this was, and then he pulled the win out of nowhere.
I was very surprised that he won. He got his ass kicked after it, didn't he?
He did. Heidenreich came in and battered him. Or whoever that was. Berlin and The Wall. Like, that's just lazy.
I mean, it's all good to try and have a story for everyone, but probably better not.
Backstage, Ric Flair's very excited. He is with Mike Tenay shouting, and then he starts whispering, and he's getting excited about spanking Kimberly, and I reached for the remote because I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not good.
No.
Just as bad as Undertaker and DDP's program was, and what it was all based around. Yeah. This program is up there as well. DDP and Ric Flair sounds cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. It's a shame.
It is. Okay. Well, talking about a shame, here's a match that sounded great on paper. World Television title match, Chris Benoit, the champion, defending against Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner, who we saw last year at this event, pushed as the ultimate babyface. He ended up winning the tag team titles on his own. This sounded good. In execution?
Yep. I mean, what have they done to Rick? I mean, we were on board. We were there. We were with him. We felt for him. We celebrated his success. He now seems to be some sort of angry biker.
Yep.
And yeah, I immediately thought this is going to be very physical.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably not going to be anyone, holding back on their shots here. But I don't really like Rick Steiner being this. I don't take anything from it.
What's his slogan seem to be? It's like, if you want to, what was it? Because people had it on a sign, but it didn't make sense. It was really stupid. If you want a bite, come get a fight, sort of thing. It was. I've never seen Benoit get so one-sided beat down.
Yeah,
in a match for that long. Just Steiner's just seems a bit beat up and slow, and
he's really slow, and kind of to the point it's noticeable, because Benoit can go. He would have his moments in a match where it's fast paced, it's intense and all that, but I got the impression it had to be at a slower pace.
Yep. There's a horrible bit in this match where there's a lot of horrible bits, but there's a really horrible bit where Steiner's tried to use a chair. Benoit's turned the tables on him, and the chair is lying on Rick Steiner. Benoit goes up top for the flying headbutt, and Steiner just, as Benoit's coming down, just throws the chair up in the air right towards his face without any sort of consideration of where it might hit him.
Yeah.
That could have went so wrong.
It kind of feels like I've got in my notes that it feels like Steiner's taking some liberties with him.
Absolutely.
And you don't like to see that, because I have no doubt Benoit's the kind of guy that's like, make it look real late in. That's fine, but there's a line. And then I think there's the boring chants again here. And I was kind of with them on this one. I think I was just waiting for it to end.
There's a move where it looked like Steiner gave up. He was going for a power bomb on Benoit, but instead of sort of catching him and throwing him back down, he just let him go.
He just threw him over his head, basically. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't good. We get the trio of suplexes by Benoit.
Nice.
The last one with a bridge for a 2. Then that's just before the ref gets taken out. Steiner has a chair. Benoit ducks, suplex, then chair shot. Yeah, I think that's all in the build up to Benoit going from the headbutt and Steiner throwing the chair, like you mentioned. But there's one thing that the announcer said. One of the announcers said this, and they say it twice in the match, and it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, which is, without sarcasm or without obvious sarcasm, they refer to Rick Steiner as a thinking man's wrestler. That's not what Rick Steiner's ever supposed to have been.
He's like a ball of madness.
Yeah. Come on. If you need to make him a biker, okay, do whatever. Don't start claiming he's a thinking man's wrestler.
The excellence of execution, Rick Steiner. Brilliant.
So we get, I think it's just after that, we get Malenko coming down. He grabs the chair, and, he was convincing him what he said at the doorway, But yeah, he takes out Benoit with the chair. So Malenko is still aligned with that group, as it turns out, because Steiner gets the win and is new TV champ because Malenko's hit Benoit with a chair, then rolled the ref back in. And then I think it's Saturn. Saturn comes down. He and Malenko kind of look like they're about to face off, but they embrace. They they screwed Benoit, and they say hi to Shane because Shane Douglas seems to be the mastermind behind it all.
Indeed. Bit of a Hogan-esque dink with the chair from Malenko, I thought.
Yeah.
He'd maybe thought Benoit had enough after Steiner had thrown him about the ring.
Possibly, yeah. That's fair enough.
Backstage with Tenay, he's with Bret Hart, and I don't like to say it, Adam, but I don't think Bret can be that long back from coming back after Owen's death.
Mm-hmm.
He has the match with Benoit dedicated to Owen on Nitro. I think it's not that far. This feels like a bit like Bret's checked out a bit.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, though, for understandable reasons.
Of course.
I mean, I can't even imagine. And then, going back into that business that you're probably feeling pretty bitter about, even though it's not in this company. And also, I did wonder, like we've seen and we've talked about him going to WCW and them not really utilising him the way they could have. Was it only the last one we got the Sting against Bret, which was very good. Yeah. But you can't really think of many other programs that leapt out or matches that leapt out because I fear Vince was right that they don't know what to do with a Bret Hart. And I don't know that Bret would have thought that Vince Russo coming in is going to make things better for him because he hated that side of things. He had already, voiced his concern about, making it lewd and over the top and all that kind of thing. He didn't want that in WWE, so I imagine he's probably not that enthused, even without, what's just happened in his life.
Yeah.
He's probably not feeling all that enthusiastic, I wouldn't have thought.
And ironically, Russo wanted to make him champion and build him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just hilarious given everything that we sort of think about how they dealt with Bret since they came in. They made, everything they did was wrong, we think.
Yeah.
Then we laugh at Russo coming in. He ironically wanted to make him champion. Mm. Anyway, Bret has got this match with the Total Package. No idea why he's changed from Lex Luger to that. He again looks a little bit off the rails. I don't know if what I know about what's went on with him and Elizabeth and all that clouds what I'm seeing here, but he just looks a bit weird.
I got quite there's a feeling of sadness, I think, when you see the two of them together because
definitely
you know what that is leading to. And obviously, she's got her own issues, but yeah, it hit me a wee bit when they came out together. I was like, can't be that long until she's going to be dead.
It's not a great match. Bret's favouring his ankle. They've done an angle where Luger attacked him with a bat in a really sort of fangled way that they even went about showing you that video and all that. Bret pretty much dominates most of the match until Luger can blindside him, get a half crab, and Bret pretty much taps as soon as he gets that. It's not good.
Do you know how long it is from here until Goldberg basically ending Bret's career?
I think that's around about. Mid 2000.
Okay.
So not long.
Yeah.
Bret gets a run in the NWO with Jarrett and the Outsiders as heavyweight champion. NWO 2000, I think they called it. It's up there with LOD 2000.
Yeah.
And then he goes into do you remember Goldberg punches a window in and nearly loses his arm? That's round about then, and then they go into that program, and then he kicks Bret in the head. And mad, sad. Backstage, we've got Tenay with Goldberg. He is. I fucking hate Goldberg.
Just after what you said, my first bit in my notes is Goldberg says he will separate Sid's head from his body, and I'm like, well,
do you like Goldberg?
Nah, I think when I was watching it when I was younger, and talked before about the switching channels and stuff like that. I think he was maybe on the rise before I lost all interest in watching anything WCW. I don't think I saw much in terms of him being champion and things like that. It was more about the build-up. But I never thought it was about, his entrance, I think, was different. But I didn't think it was amazing. I didn't think it hit me as special. And he always seemed limited in the ring. Even watching it as a youngster, I was like, this is kind of just the same as last week. Okay, that's fine. It never grabbed me, and you always heard people had a dream match, which was Goldberg against Austin and things like that. And you're like, they're not. There's no. He's not. He's not that.
No,
he's nowhere near that.
Funny, it's like both are champion, both got bald heads and goatees. So like that's it. Just I was the same. I'm saying I hate him, but I think it's the way he's presented and the way he was booked and how, if he'd had a mentor of some description.
Yeah.
Every time you hear these interviews and all that sort of thing these days, you hear that everybody was in Goldberg's ear. He was very green and Hogan and Nash and them were in his ear. So, aye. Okay, I was a bit confused as to what was going on next. I had to actually look up who this was because I don't think they said her name, and
right, okay.
There was no graphic came up, but it's Alundra Blaze or Madusa comes out. She looks like she's been. She certainly didn't look like this at SummerSlam when she took on Bull Nakano. I'll tell you that much. She's had some enhancements. She comes out. She's got WCW Nitro Cologne.
I was so confused because I thought it was real, and I have to assume it's not because the reaction to it.
They're talking about stinking and all that.
Yeah, so I think the whole purpose of this, again, is another look at the writers moment, because she has a rant about the fact that, I think she says,
this is how I'm being used or something.
Yeah, the fact I'm out here in a bikini doing this is bullshit. And she's sprayed at Heenan, who is recoiling in horror at the smell of it. And then after she's had her rant, she pours it on Heenan. And Shivani is, mocking how it smells and stuff like that. So when she first came out, I thought, we've seen for ages, we used to see Sunny in the T-shirts. She would come out wearing the T-shirts and then Sable, and it'd be a way of selling the merch. So they probably got me a wee bit in that. I thought, is this real cologne?
Yeah, same.
WCW cologne.
It's a weird.
But again, it's all about Russo. There, he just wants to do that.
This is how we're using her, bro. Did WCW ever do women's matches? I kind of think that they did they? Maybe in 2000.
Maybe. Now that you've said it, I don't really remember seeing it.
Because they brought her over and she put the title in the bin.
Yeah.
And she was part of the Dangerous Alliance, I think. But more in a sort of on-screen, I'm here type thing.
I don't remember her having matches, and I don't really remember because I remember we saw Jacqueline with Disco. That's obviously a intergender match, but I don't remember her having on pay-per-views anyway matches with any other women either.
Oh dear, strap in because this pay-per-view gets absolutely bonkers from here on out. What we got next? Sting versus Hogan. Okay, so they play Hogan's music. He's the challenger. He comes out first, except for he doesn't appear. So instead of telling us what's going on, they then just play Sting's music. So Sting just comes out. Yeah. And then they do like did you restart your computer? So they play Hogan's music again. He finally appears. He's got jeans and like a cut-off shirt on and boots on. So you know something's going on. Hogan gets in the ring, goes face-to-face with Sting. They're supposed to be fighting for the World Heavyweight title. Hogan lies down. Sting reluctantly covers him. Gets the 3. Hogan gets up and walks back through the... Hogan walks, then walks back out.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to think here? Is this supposed to be? Is this a work shoot?
Like,
probably.
I would have had no doubt in my mind if Russo wasn't there at the time that Hogan had a backstage tantrum and that this is all he was willing to do because he was told he was going to lose or whatever. But with the fact Russo is there, I would be more inclined to think that this was the plan and Russo has designed it this way to make Hogan look like this and then rant about the plan and the writers and stuff like that just because Russo's there. That's the only reason I think that.
And apparently the plan, like I said earlier, is take Hogan off TV along with Flair and Savage and bring Hogan back as a run as Teddy Bollea.
I mean, why? Why?
There's no brand recognition, bro.
I mean, can you imagine if you've got Hulk Hogan, right? You want to build younger guys. Now, he may take some talking into this, but imagine giving an up-and-coming guy a win against Hogan. Not Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan. If you beat Hulk Hogan, that is a moment. That's a huge moment. And we've seen over years some legends do it that way. They'll put a guy. We've seen it fairly recently with Cena. I think he has given the rub to a few younger, less established talents.
Hogan did it for Brock Lesnar.
He did, yeah.
I was actually trying to think if there's anybody on this card who could have actually benefited from that. Benoit is about the only one. He's probably as high up.
Yeah,
it might not have been.
I mean, imagine though they decided imagine they decided we're going to go with Benoit. That then you could do it and you could get a huge amount out of that. But I would imagine Hogan would say he's too small or something like that. It's not at my level.
Not tanned enough, brother.
Yeah.
Just nonsensical. I don't understand how these things keep happening on Halloween Havocs.
There's probably some folk in that crowd really excited for a Sting Hogan match, and
that's what I was thinking about as well. Like that's where this feels like an episode of Nitro, like an extended episode of Nitro. I definitely quite. You lose fans that way, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like after he pins him, they cut immediately to a promo for Sid and Goldberg, and Schiavone and Heenan are going, "Oh, what's going on?" So it is relatively effective in making you at least question what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll tell you what I didn't like right at the start here. Tony Schiavone has been talking all through that previous match about how the challenger comes out first. Challenger has to come out first. When it's the title match, challenger comes out first. Immediately from that, into a US title match, and said the champion is out first.
Yeah.
Come on, Tony.
It's like it's written to be poor. Yeah. So for again, the US title goes above the World Heavyweight title. Why is that? We don't know, really, do we? Sid comes out. He's already been beat up. He's got a bit of blood on his face. Followed by Goldberg, and Scott Hall appears out of nowhere and attacks. Goldberg does his best to remind people that on WWF there's a far superior brand going on with the DX Suck It. He does it about 1 million times.
Yeah.
Nash joins him. They beat up Goldberg. Of course, that doesn't faze Goldberg one iota. He just fucking fights them off, then beats the living shit out of Sid.
I had so many issues with this. I actually wondered earlier in the show, where's Hall and Nash? And I thought, are they on the bench right now? Are they maybe just sitting at home getting their money? And then I saw them appear and I thought, oh, okay. But not actually in ring. But you've got Sid is a monster. Sid's huge. Sid is legitimately terrifying. If you ran into Sid, you're turning the other way. You're doing a runner. And I would have got, like, had this, you're clearly trying to stack the deck. You're trying to make things as difficult for Goldberg as you possibly can. Okay, fine. But it's not that he gets attacked on the outside, then he goes in, and it's a struggle, and it's a slog, and all that. He just fucking destroys him.
We've said this before, it's like they almost stack the deck against the heel.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Like, Sid's almost made to be the babyface where he's fighting from underneath. And you get more respect for Sid out of this match than anybody, because he's just willing to never say die.
Yeah, he's been attacked. He's a bloody mess from the start, and then you think, well, are they evening it up a wee bit here by having Nash and Hall go after? But I still, like, every time I watch him, I still like Sid, like, kind of regardless of what's going on. I've gone a wee bit sassy in my notes because I keep writing Gilberg rather than Goldberg. But Heenan. I love Bobby Heenan, but he goes far too far here.
What did he say?
He refers to Goldberg as one of the biggest names in wrestling history. Now, come on, Bobby.
You don't need to say history. Stop it at wrestling, it's fine.
But yeah, like you say, Sid, he's got this he won't quit thing going on, which, at least I suppose there's a way back for him after that in another program against another opponent. But
do you know what's an underrated aspect of Sid's game is his selling. I felt like I was watching Kurt Hennig mixed with Dolph Ziggler in their prime, just bumping about all over the place. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's a good seller, and I kind of like. I'm not a huge fan of blood in wrestling anymore, but there is something about somebody who won't quit when there is blood all over their face. There's something about that.
I agree. However, on a pay-per-view where the guy has to give up the match because of the amount of blood that he's lost, and you then follow a match with a guy covered in blood and the match just goes on and on and on, it doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
I thought Sid quit, but he didn't at all. The referee stopped it.
Yeah, the ref stopped
because of the amount of blood he was losing. Sid wants to keep fighting, but Rick Steiner comes out. I had zero idea why Rick Steiner was here. Yep. He's obviously aligned with Sid, though.
Trying to save Sid for himself, but that bit of the story had absolutely not been told because that was just out of absolutely nowhere. I think the only saving grace for me with this whole thing was the entire match. I was so scared of Goldberg doing like the jackhammer. I didn't want to see that, and thankfully didn't have to see it here.
So Goldberg gets his vengeance and gets his win, although he doesn't take the belt. He seems pretty unsatisfied with that.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll get another chance at fighting somebody else tonight. Who knows? This is where they then show us the footage of Ric Flair and Kimberly in the hotel room. By this point, I am ready to switch this off. He did not need to show me this now. Then Sting comes out to the ring, looking probably as pissed off as he actually is. He says he didn't come to Vegas for the night off, throws out an open challenge for later tonight. They must have could have been able to do that for the back, surely. Come on. Now, I think I've got a note from someone else, so I'm confused here. Anyway, we go into our strap match between DDP and Ric Flair. This outstayed its welcome a little bit, did it not?
There were so many matches on this card that I thought went on an unnecessary amount of time, and this was another one. Like I've got some notes, I can walk through it, but I had lost interest. I was done. There's the straps are attached. They end up fighting on the outside, fight through the crowd, through the stands. I've got them back towards the ring. I've got in my notes. Flair plants a kiss on Kimberly. He thinks he's on that plane again.
helicopter.
I am. I am. Oh, I'm really bored. Flair's busted open. DDP then, it seems like he goes through a moment where he's like, I've kind of had enough myself. I'm done with playing. I'm just going to dominate now. And I think he puts him in the announce table. There's a funny moment there. Heenan immediately moves when they're going towards the announce table, and you've heard the stories about him and neck problems and stuff like that. So I imagine he was very happy to get away from that immediately. But Shivani kind of sneaks away like a cartoon villain. Like the camera's right there and can see him, but he's like sneaking in the background, which amused me. And if I'm picking up on things like that, I'm probably not that into the match.
Checked out.
So DDP is thinking he's got the pin, but Flair kicks out. Low blow by Flair, and then he starts to get more into the match. Kimberly doing the facial expressions of a very troubled person at this point, thinking that her man's going to get beat. Flair locks in the figure of four. DDP choking Flair with the strap, and then DDP hits the diamond cutter. And the bell rings, but it kind of didn't look like the ref actually counted three.
No, he counted two and then did like a delayed, but not in a playful way. He did it in a shit. I don't think he was supposed to go down for three way. DDP's wildly pissed off. I don't know if he's playing at it or not, but he ends up diamond cutter. Poor Charles Robinson.
Yeah, because all I was thinking was, remember he used to get referred to as Little Nate or something like that, and he was at times aligned with Flair, and I thought, is this anything to do with that? But I wasn't sure it was supposed to be. We got David Flair coming out to make the save while DDP's choking Flair, but Kimberly, I've got knees him in the dick in my notes. Takes a crowbar, gives it to DDP, who hits Flair in the same region with it. DDP diamond cutter on David Flair, and they're just kind of, the two Flairs are just kind of laying there quite near each other on the mat. Kimberly has thoroughly enjoyed all of this, these last few minutes. She looks delighted.
I was kind of getting like Ric Flair's been murdered here.
Yeah, a wee bit, yeah.
Charles Robinson was actually crying. And you know that episode of Friends where Joey's doing the acting classes?
Yeah.
And he's telling them how to cry. And he says, you take a little pair of tweezers and you start pulling. That's what David Flair made me think of. He had like a sort of confused, trying to force out a crocodile tear.
There was nothing like natural about David Flair.
Not at all.
So we get medics helping Rick, putting a brace round his neck, and they are going to wheel him out towards the ambulance. But the action is not done there.
Indeed, the filthy animals come flying out of nowhere, kick Flair off of his stretcher. They've got Torre on the video camera. They chuck him in the back of the ambulance and take off. They've kidnapped him. Kidnapped the corpse of Ric Flair.
Yeah.
For what nefarious reason?
So we're not done yet.
We're not done. So Sting comes out to the ring, and then so does Goldberg. They parade around the ring for quite some time. Sting has to shout into the camera, "There's no ref." And on commentary they say, well, it's not going to be Charles Robinson. He's just witnessed his best friend be murdered, and then out of nowhere, Lil Nate comes flying down like Usain Bolt and sweeps into the ring.
He moved on really quickly from what he'd just seen, and the bit of a beating he'd taken as well. But nah, he's fine. He's good to go.
He's good. Goldberg sort of does his, he continues how he's sold against Flair and sold against Sid, and just no sells everything Sting does.
Yeah. Like
to the point where it's like really frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
I think Sting hits a spear and Goldberg gets up and does a spinning back kick in his face.
Yep. I think there's a moment for no selling in certain circumstances. I don't think this would never be it. This is Sting. This is, one of the biggest stars in the history of this company, and you can build who you want to be your top guy without absolutely burying everyone else.
Absolutely. The Undertaker can get away with no selling. A Samoan, if you headbutt him, no selling.
Yeah.
Hogan, if he's hulking up, no selling is fine.
Yeah.
But not just like getting smashed up. He gets 3 stinger splashes and just immediately spears him.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Anyway, like I said, Sting hits 3 stinger splashes. So naturally, Goldberg goes off the ropes and spears him, hits a jackhammer. And we've been told that this is a non-title match. And Charles Robinson picks up the belt and gives it to Goldberg.
Yeah.
Who,
that confused me.
For the second time of the night, looks confused to be being handed a belt.
I assume he has become champion here, just because of the way it went down, but it was definitely said early on that it was a non-title.
So, I bet you could, if I gave you a million scenarios, you could not work out what they did the following night. They said that it was a non-title match, so Goldberg was not the champion.
Okay.
However, because Sting, Scorpion Death dropped Charles Robinson, he was stripped of the title to leave the title as vacant. Because Russo wanted to do a tournament.
Okay. Okay.
Just a mess. A mess from top to bottom, this pay-per-view was. Not in an entertaining way.
Is that the worst one? I was thinking this. Because I know we had a couple of stinkers along the way, but I think this was the worst one.
At least with some of those ones round about the mid-90s, where there was some creative decisions where we were just they've done the one thing that you wouldn't want them to do. But the wrestling was pretty good.
Yeah.
In between times, but some of this was just diabolical.
Yeah.
My wife came in towards the end. I was just sitting shaking my head. I was like, I just need to get to the end of this. And she says, no, very good. And I was like, no, it's absolutely awful. But she said, but do you think, she said, look at all the people that are there. Do you think at the time that they would have enjoyed, this would have been good at the time? And I thought that was a really good question because I don't know the answer.
It's a good question. I was frustrated and annoyed at the end, but I'm pretty sure the crowd popped big for Goldberg getting that win. And, I'm not a Goldberg fan, but clearly a lot of people were at the time. I just I like wrestling. And there wasn't enough of it, and there wasn't enough, in-match, in-ring story. There was a lot of nonsense on the periphery of it, I think, and maybe really rushed. If Russo and Ferrara have only been in so long and this is a pay-per-view, maybe they've not. I would maybe have watched it and thought we'll give them a couple more. We'll see, where it goes, but we kind of know where it goes. But I do imagine without a Vince McMahon, is this just what WWF would have looked like? It probably is.
Yep. Yeah. Cornette's once done a bit on his podcast, and it's about a 45-minute to an hour bit, and it's just, I think he's got a bit of paper that were all Vince Russo ideas, and some of the ideas on them are unbelievable.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
So that was 99. I think you're right. I think this was the worst one. I think it was. I'd said to you before I didn't want to look at 2000, but I think we need perking up. Should we look at...
What if it does the opposite?
Oh, we should see what the main event is. I've looked, sorry.
Okay, you have to tell me. If you've looked, just tell me.
Okay. What an odd commentary team. Tony Schiavone, Mark Madden, Stevie Ray and Conan.
That is odd. Okay.
Back in Las Vegas. Okay, here we go. WCW World Tag Team Title match. The Natural Born Thrillers, which is Jindrak and O'Hare, versus the Boogie Knights, Alex Wright and Disco.
Oh, they have aligned them. They've aligned the dancers. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's Disco,
How
Disqo.
And
Like
how are they spelling knights in Boogie Nights?
With a K.
Like the Knights of the Boogie? Is that
Yes,
how they're...
yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's funny they've aligned them, eh? Berlin, maybe. I wonder if the Berlin Wall has... Don't say it. What was that? Natural Born Thrillers versus Boogie Nights versus the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio.
Okay.
Triangle match, that's called. A WCW Hardcore title match. Reno, also known as Rick Cornell, versus Sergeant AWOL. Again, no idea who that is. Sergeant AWOL. Okay. Okay, tag team match. The Perfect Event. Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak.
No. Okay.
Versus the Misfits in Action. Corporal Cajun and Lieutenant Loco. That's Lash LaRue.
So there's a sergeant in the previous match. There's a lieutenant and a corporal in this match. Are they all? I'm gonna have to assume they're all aligned.
Stop that. Corporal Cajun is Lash LaRue and Lieutenant Loco is Chavo Guerrero.
Oh,
just when you thought Kerwin White was the worst gimmick that he's ever had.
Oh no.
We've got a mixed tag team match. The Franchise and Torrie Wilson versus the Filthy Animals, Conan and Tigress.
Tigress?
No idea. AKA Nitro Girl Tigress. DNA First Blood match.
Oh, God. Is it? I am like... I would assume that you're just mocking me here, but I'm thinking that's real.
No, David Flair versus Oh my God. David Flair versus Buff Bagwell in a DNA First Blood match. Oh my God, this is just crazy. WCW Commissionership 3-round kickboxing match. Mike Sanders, who has no other alter egos apart from Mike Sanders, versus the Cat.
Was that Ernest Miller?
That's Ernest Miller, yeah. He is with Miss Jones, also known as Nitro Girl Chameleon. This is like the first year NXT where you don't know anybody's names. They've just taken people from the indies.
Why is it? Why would you have a kickboxing match for the commission? Okay, fine.
Is this their response to Brawl for All? They've seen how well it went. Give Bart Gunn a phone, see if he's up for another one. Singles match, Mike Awesome versus Vampiro.
Okay.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm going to struggle to say this. WCW United States Heavyweight Title 2-on-1 handicap match. Team Canada, Jim Duggan and Lance Storm with Major Guns. What is with all the military versus General Rex?
That's Bill DeMott. Like, I remember he had that name. Like, I think they started it. Now, I don't know why I know this, but I think they started it as General Erection, and it was maybe 2 on the nose, and they had to drop the E.
Oh, can I take this? General Rex.
Lance Storm.
Jim, who had Jim Duggan returning after the last time we saw him? Didn't he beat Austin the last time we saw him?
Oh, I've made a mistake in looking up Major Guns.
Who's Major Guns? Tylene Buck. Is it a woman?
American pornographic actress, model, cam girl, and
Only
former
fans.com.
professional wrestler in Valley. Okay.
Has she got major guns?
I think I've figured out what the guns are. I think I'm there now. Yeah.
Big muscles. Sting versus Jeff Jarrett. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
World Heavyweight title match. Booker T versus Scott Steiner. Fine.
Okay. Yeah.
What is being billed here as the final match on the card, which I'm assuming is the main event? A 2-on-1 handicap elimination match. Goldberg versus Chronic.
And that's after the world title match.
Yep. Brian Adams and Brian Clark, who I would probably have assumed was the same person. So
yeah,
that's
I think
Adam
one of them.
Bomb and Crush.
Yeah.
Wow, what a team!
Yeah, I was gonna say one of them's Crush. I couldn't remember which way round, but yeah.
Crush's signature moves are quite impressive. Cranium Crunch, Chokeslam, Press Slam, and Heart Punch.
Oh yeah, the good old Heart Punch.
To watch it for that, Goldberg. Should no sell that.
I'm just checking because you've walked me through the card. This is the last one.
This is the last one. Then we've got the NXT ones after that. No, I'm just joking. Yep, this is the last one. A lovely way to bookend the year. Oh my God,
Okay.
General Erection has sent me. Why did they think that that's all right? Look at all
I can just
them.
imagine Vince Russo pissing himself. He probably came up with the General Erection, and is he gone by now? It's probably like, let's just take out the E, and then it's not controversial anymore.
Whoever's come up with the Boogie Nights, so disco is like Cisco, but with a D now.
Oh.
Mark Jindrak was originally supposed to be in Evolution, wasn't he? They filmed. He took the Batista role, didn't he?
Yeah, and then I think it was the other members were like, nah,
he
I
doesn't
don't
really
think
fit
he's
here.
the guy. It's probably in hindsight the right decision, I would have thought. I'm
just going to check what cage match users. Oh, an overall rating of 2.04. This has got. Let's just check what 99 got. Because that's... Oh, dear.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
99 got 3.5.
Oh, no. It's more than a point worse than 99.
There's zero Wrestling Observer, ratings for 99, which isn't that surprising. Last one.
It's the last one. We're almost there.
We're going to watch Final Destination, so that should help. Maybe Death. Maybe we could do some sort of crossover where Death then starts stalking all the people on this card.
Maybe the people that allowed this card to air and
that booked it
play out the way it did. Yeah.
Probably Kevin Sullivan. Well, indeed, yes. Let's go out with a bang for 2023.
Yeah.
I often say so. We'll look forward to that. Jeff Jarrett versus Sting might be alright.
It might be alright, yeah.
I wonder what General Erection wears. Jinky wears a purple helmet.
Yeah, I hope so.
Please.
I was just thinking, can you imagine, like, even if it was discussed in the back, Jeff Jarrett's an old school kind of guy. Can you imagine, looking at year to year, anyone saying in the back, right, you're the young guy, you're up and coming, so we're going to put you over on Sting. What we want you to do is absolutely no sell his moves. I'm fairly sure Jarrett would be like, no, that's not how it works. I'm not the biggest Jeff Jarrett fan, but I'm pretty sure he would have just said absolutely not. It's not happening.
Oh dear. Right, let's get out of here. You're going to go watch it now, aren't you?
I am going to start tonight, so we're going to do the follow-up show a little bit earlier than we usually would. So I am going to start watching it so that I can do things like get drunk at the weekend. That's kind of my plan.
You might need to after watching this, to be fair.
It might lead to some, drinking in the house beforehand, which I don't really do very often, but it might send me there.
This seems like an appropriate time. Okay, well, take it easy, and we shall speak again next week.
Yeah.
And we can discuss which WCW pay-per-view we're going to follow this journey up with.
Don't.
Okay, take it easy, buddy.
Cheers.
Speak to you soon.